Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast, the voice of bodybuilding. And today's voice is Darian Bates. Now, we've been talking because there's been some things going on social media, and Darian's come on today. This is not about starting a war or anything like that, but we've spoken, and it seems like it's a really good opportunity, essentially, to talk about what it feels like to have bullying take place on social media and anything, that offers that conflict. And it's something that the listeners, they know that I speak about this on the podcast already, but to be able to talk to you, I feel super grateful for, us connecting and be able to talk about it in a raw form, because I think sometimes people think it's just them that are struggling with this type of thing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I think like the initial reaction is to get offline. The amount of people that told me just to turn off the comments or delete the post and whatnot. And I was like, I've got nothing against what I said in my post. I don't feel like I should have to delete it. It's a reflection on them and their misunderstanding, and that's not for me to take responsibility over. So I put out a post about hack squats, and it was purely just giving some tips on the hack squats and how to execute it properly. The comment section turned into a pretty viral harassment on my appearance. People saying that I did, people saying that I did crack, I looked like the Walking Dead. I totally understand that people don't understand eating disorders. It's very uncommon to speak openly about because so many females hide it, or it was just the lack of literature around it, the lack of awareness around it. And I've dealt with these kind of comments my entire life. So that didn't necessarily bother me too much. At first it was a bit like, hang on, like, is anyone actually like listening to what I said, or are they just kind of like jumping on the bandwagon of, throwing out whatever they want to throw out? I also think like it's a little bit of a reflection on them as far as like, if, and I know it's kind of cliche to say, but if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. But from my perspective, if there's been something that I didn't like on the internet or I didn't agree with, I scroll. Like, everyone's showing up their best and doing their best. It wasn't until Greg took my reel and posted it on his page that I got a bit upset. I got a bit upset because his caption didn't even reflect anything that I was talking about in the video. It was, he said that it was great tips for leg press, and I was like, yeah, it's actually a hack squat. But he also did so knowing that he was feeding off the comment section. He has over 200 followers, and I was like, okay, well, this is just exposing it to more and more people and exposing me to more bullying. Beyond that, I messaged Greg and I asked him very nicely to take it down. I explained that I've already received a bunch of nasty comments from this and I don't want to feed the fire further. He said that he turned off the comment section so that I wouldn't have to read it. And I was like, but it's still feeding people to my post. And then he kind of turned around and said that he was considering doing a whole video on me and talking about body dysmorphia in the industry and whatnot. And I was like, you don't know me from a bar of soap. I don't know you from a bar of soap. You don't know my story to tell. But that was kind of like the breaking point for me. And that was the first time that I cried about it, because I was like, it's not the comments. It's not the lack of understanding from other people. It's people thinking that they can tell my story when that's my story to own, and that's mine to tell when I want to tell it and how I want to tell it. It's very, I wouldn't say it's very new, but it's still recent years for me to be very open and honest and transparent about my eating disorder, that I don't think anyone else has the right to tell me what I've experienced. There's a lot of trauma behind that. There's a lot of things that I'm still working through and still trying to understand about myself, that really hurt me. And then for him to try to play the victim card and say that I was doing it for attention and that I wanted it, that was really hurtful, because when he said that, I was sharing the comments and then like trying to get people to sign up for coaching. And I was like, I was only sharing the positive comments. I was only sharing the support that I was getting from my clients and my friends and whatnot. I didn't share any of the negative ones because I don't think they deserve that attention. Yes.
Mm. It's, I think as well, you know, what you said there about it being your story. I believe that there's certain ways to look at it, but this is potentially why people don't feel confident enough to maybe go down the route of accepting that they've got an eating disorder, or it's going that way, or being able to deal with trauma in the past, like you touched on there, that leads into an eating disorder. It's so difficult. And I know that there's going to be listeners that people have reached out before that are struggling with the food side of things, etc., etc. And even that level of acceptance on a smaller scale, as it were, if it's leading that way, is very, very difficult. To then have that exposed on social media, it gives that almost substance to how does that feel for you, you know, inside a lot of trauma and everything that's led to this day, to then almost feel like your whole life's being blown up on social media. And then it's like, what can you do to almost, it's out of your control, as it were, isn't it? If someone else is, you know, flying that ship. And I can only say, you know, I can't imagine how hard that is, but it'd be really interesting to sort of hear about, is there certain things that you've done to try and protect your own mental health, as it were, at this point of where everything's sort of still quite acute?
Yeah, and before I touch on that, something that you said there was that is something that I've been struggling with like the past couple of days since this has all kind of like come to fire is I feel like I'm getting put back in the eating disorder bracket. And I'm like, I've got so much more to offer than that. I'm not my eating disorder. It's a part of me, but that's not Darian. And that's not how I show up. And that's not how I show up for my clients. And that's sort of been the scary thing that's been causing me a little bit of anxiety, because it's like I don't want people, even someone messaged me and they're like, well, you should pin like, you know, a thing about your eating disorder to the top of your page. And I was like, no, I shouldn't, because that's not who I am. I own my story and I own my experience and what I've been through, but I'm not my eating disorder. And I feel like a lot of people, so recently I've lost a lot of weight, and it's actually just bad timing because it's totally unrelated to the eating disorder. But so far it's like a medical mystery, but I was in hospital for it and I couldn't eat much, I couldn't move much. And this year was actually starting off really good, and I was really proud of the progress I'd made. I was making really good strengths in the gym, I was gaining weight, I was feeling really positive and motivated, and you know, it was like I turned 30 and I was like, I'm just gonna make 30s like the best years of my life. And then to get that sick with something that was out of my control, and then I dropped a lot of weight really fast. The only identity that I had from my upbringing and my previous experience were related to the eating disorder.
Mm.
And unfortunately, with the bad timing of all this, everyone just kind of assumed that I've dropped a lot of weight because I'm struggling with my eating disorder. And I'm like, I get that that's what you're assuming, but at the same time, like it's about opening that conversation and asking someone what's going on. But I think that's the scariest part for me at the moment is, oh, not the scariest part, but the part that I'm kind of resenting the most is that people are putting me in that bracket of an eating disorder. But I guess, and this is like to your question, I've really learned this year that a lot of people say that made me feel this way or that made me feel that way. And it's sort of, you're an adult. You saying that there's something that someone did or said made you feel a certain way is taking that authority away from yourself and projecting it onto someone else. The way that you feel is the way that you perceive someone's intentions. So if you're unsure, ask them what their intentions were when they said that. And if it were to like a lot of the comments, if they were to just put you down and harass you, then that's a reflection on them. I'm not going to let those comments interpret how I feel about myself or how proud I am with how far I've come or where I am now. Like even though I feel lethargic and tired and I'm still recovering from being so sick, like I'm making the progress and I'm showing up and I'm getting better and stronger each day. And I'm not going to let someone's, I don't know, uneducated response affect that. I've kind of really learned to one thing that Greg said to me is he's like, have you considered counseling? And I do get counseling, and I advise everyone to get counseling. And I actually have a counselor that I pay for all my clients.
Yeah.
And one thing that she kind of said to me is she pulled out this jar and all it had in it was a bunch of words that said fuck. And she's like, see this jar? And she emptied it out. And she's like, that's what you've got left. She's like, you're going through so much, and you're unwell, you've just moved houses, you're trying to manage your work, you're trying to manage your health, and your body just doesn't have the energy. Now you have this, and it's going into that negative fast. And that's sort of what it was like when it happened. When I started getting those hate comments, I was just like, I don't have any fucks left to give. Like, and yeah, for me to let that affect how I show up on social media or the advice that I give, like, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, for sure. It's like that. When you say that, it's like the cup, isn't it? When I talk to clients about this, it's like you need to try and fill up your cup, because even from what we do as bodybuilders, like the training, if you are in a deficit, all of the things that you're doing, you're sort of chipping away at how full your cup is. And then something happens that's quite acute, whether that be, an illness or a challenge, a relationship, anything like that. Suddenly the cup is empty. And I think that sometimes people that do bully others on social media for things that are happening, don't realize that this is a human behind this. It's not just a page. And like you've mentioned, you've already got so many things going on that are chipping away at that cup. And then for you, that could have big consequences. And I think this is probably why a lot of people are getting behind you as well, because it's like, when you look at this logically, you are a human being, you're a person, and people can only take so much. And where does that lead if you weren't as strong as you are? And the way you're talking, it's great that you're being objective about this, but what if this was someone else that was in your position? And where does that go? And this is what really scares me in social media in general.
Yeah,
Wild.
100%. And that's what I said in one of the comments when someone said that it was like I looked like it was something like that. I looked like a Walking Dead or something. And I said, yeah, well, imagine what I looked like when I was 20 kilos lighter. And I was in that ICU bed. But then, like, reflecting back, if I was 20 kilos lighter and I put that post out where I was mentally then, I hate to say it, but easily suicidal.
Sure.
If I received those comments easily. But my life had no value, no meaning. I felt stuck. I felt like I felt like I was trapped in my eating disorder, and all I wanted was an out. And that would have been an easy out.
Yeah. And this is the scary part of social media. I actually, talk to people a lot about it can be such a beautiful place, right? Like me and you connecting, it wouldn't happen without social media. And forego the sort of circumstances, I meet a lot of people that I build a strong bond with, and it can be so good. But then there's so much that happens that, like you say, suicidal thoughts or where that can lead. And it's a difficult one, Darian, because it's like there's no way we can wave a magic wand and make this sort of disappear. But I think what's so insightful for you sharing what's happened today is that even people that are getting little comments or things happen, it's like, how can we deal with this without, obviously you can mute people, you can block people and hide comments, etc. So you've got a counselor, do you lean on sort of other people in your support network as well and talk through this?
I didn't really find that I needed to, because a lot of the hate, not until actually even sort of like when Greg came out, I was sort of like, I'm the kind of person that goes into fix it mode. And I think that I think that I approached Greg in a very nice and friendly manner and tried to go from it from a moral and empathy response. Unfortunately, he has no morals. And it's but I was proud of myself for doing that rather than just freaking out and reacting. And I think, like, even in his comment section when it was open, I replied to the comments and I said, look at my page.
Yeah.
Look at my story, kind of thing. And I think that I was proud of myself for being able to stick up for myself. I've always been very independent. I don't know whether or not that is because of the eating disorder. As I said, like eating disorders are kind of this thing where it's you just learn how to get by. You know, and then you don't ask people for help because you don't necessarily want help, which can be both a pro and a con when you get older. But I didn't really find that I needed to lean on people. I wanted people to find their own voice in it and then kind of see who came through, like who was able to kind of critically think through it. I think like when the first comment about my appearance came out and then everyone jumped on the bandwagon, it just became an easy thing for other people to do, was like to kind of, you know, like when in school, like if a bully's picking on some kid and I don't know, another bully never really even noticed that kid, he would be like, okay, I'll pick on him too. Like I'll fit in as well. And I was like, I was kind of just sitting there and I was like, who's going to be the outlier? Like who's going to be the one that actually thinks about this from, I don't know, like it just thinks about it critically and like kind of, wait, what's going on here? Like this person had nothing to do with it. And Ben was one of those, your partner. Sorry, Ben, Matt.
Yeah.
Matt, yeah. I when I messaged Patty, I said, "Oh, Ben referred me to you." He's like, "Who's Ben?" And now I've got like Ben in my mind whenever I think about it. And then you know, for Patty to come out and do it, and it's like a lot of my clients were like, "Wait, like this isn't the way. This isn't who Darian is. Like I've worked with her for a long time. This isn't who she is." And it's like, well, they're the people that matter, and that's all I needed. I think there was one point where I got really upset. My brother jumped into the comments and stuck up for me. And obviously, being my younger brother, he's seen it all. He's been through it all, and he grew up with it, unfortunately. And he jumped in and he said, "Darian is one of the strongest women I know. She's just been through hell, and she comes out the other end every time. Figures out a way." And then someone from a business page left a nasty comment on it, and he replied and he's like, "What the hell are you doing? You're on a business page. Like, why are you making fun of girls online from a business page?" And then someone else suggested that they go on my brother's account and look up his business and then give him 0-star reviews. And that made me upset because I was like, no one should have to suffer repercussions. I shouldn't have to suffer repercussions from it, let alone my family members or those who love and support me. My mum jumped in the comments and then she got some nasty comments about the way that she looks. And I'm like, guys, she's like 50 years old. Like, what do you expect her to look like? And I was more worried about mum then, and I guess that's just what I do. I worry about other people, but it's like, I was like, I knew mum had never been exposed to something like that online bullying, because she's never online or anything like that. And so I was like, are you okay? Like, I know that people are making fun of you. Are you okay, kind of thing? And yeah, so I guess like I didn't really lean on anyone. I really wanted to practice what I had been trying to work on this year, which was like I said, not letting people indicate how I feel about things.
Yeah, which is, you can make so much progress, can't you, with this in life? Like, I know so many people be listening thinking, you know, they're working on how they deal with conflict. That could be in a workplace or a relationship or any of those things. And something that's so important is, you know, you don't have to be able to deal with it 100% in the way that maybe you thought you would have. If something catches you off guard or something becomes very acute like it is for you right now, it's like right in the thick of what happened, and it's learning, you know, okay, so I dealt with it this way, do I still deal with that, you know, if it comes up in the future, or can I do it better?
Yeah.
It's almost like sort of a silver lining, as it were, to those lessons that we can learn. And I think certainly, like you said there, it's almost, you know, your clients and who you care about, they're saying, she's the strongest person I know. That's not Darian, who's being projected as, you know, what Greg's put out and the comments that you're getting. I just, it's such a difficult thing to watch unfold from my point of view. And I'm not, you know, dealing with these comments.
Yeah.
It's
I think too, like I first got admitted into hospital when I was 14 years old. Ever since, I've been exposed to health programs, mental health programs, group programs with girls and things like that, that I think like at the moment it's like, okay, you know what works and what doesn't work. Like, let's start putting it into practice. Like for example, you can read all the self-help books that you want. Like if you don't practice it, it's not going to do anything. It's same with education, same with kind of anything. You can learn all about training and nutrition and that. If you don't implement it, it's not going to do anything. And I think like where was I going with that? One of the things that Mac, who's like my team's mental health coach, it said to me was, it's like, just let go, because it's exhausting trying to control everything. Just let go. And I realized that I can't control what people are going to say about me on social media. I can't control what they want to think and things like that. But like I said, I can control my reaction to it, and I can control how I reply to it. And there was some comments in there that I thought justified a reply. One guy said, "Are we promoting eating disorders now?" And I commented back and told him he was ignorant. He messaged me later and he said, "Sorry, I looked at your page and I saw your story. I'm really sorry about my comment. My daughter's 14 and she's going through an eating disorder."
Oh, wow.
And I said, "I'm really sorry to hear about your daughter. I can get that you're on, the front foot and you're ready to attack and stick up for her. But that post had nothing to do with eating disorders. You were feeding off the comments. You weren't feeding off anything that I said." And I said, and then I just said, make sure that your daughter knows that she's still there and she's not an eating disorder, and good luck to you.
That's so relevant to actually, I did a completely separate topic, Darian, but I had someone on that's going through a transition from male to female, and a lot of the hate that she receives is actually people that are trans themselves, but they don't know what to do. They're stuck, and they attack her because she's made the transition. And she's had this multiple times. When she actually does talk to them, it's actually transpires that they want to be able to do what she's done. And that's a good example in a different way. Obviously it's completely different, but actually sometimes people are attacking you. It's from, you're not fitting their narrative, or maybe they're struggling with a similar thing, or a family member in your example. It's super important for people to understand that when they are receiving this sort of bullying a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I think too that it's no, I lost my thought. You keep going. It'll come back.
I think as well, when you actually do dig down on it, a bit like what you said, let it go. Again, depending on the scenario and your mental toughness, that's obviously going to mean something different to different people, depending on where you're at on maybe like your mindset journey, your mental health, as it were, and what scenario you're in. Because sometimes if you've never dealt with it before and it's the first conflict you've had, it can really overtake you, and that can be quite hard to then build that, you know what I mean, to be able to go, right, I'm going to let it go. I've got much better at myself, but it took a number of years to go, do you know, these are words, these are opinions, it's not me. Like you said, that you're not the food disorder. It's quite a hard thing to sometimes get used to, but once you master the art of this, it does become a lot more easier, if that makes sense, to just go, look, I'm going to let that go and I'm going to move on, acting with integrity to what's important to me.
Yeah, I think when I was really, really unwell, my main priority was to convince people that I was okay, because I didn't want to wind up back in hospital, and I didn't want to get treatment, and I didn't want to get help. And it's a completely different scenario now. Like, if I notice that my eating disorder is getting louder or becoming more prominent, I'm the first one to go, okay, I need more help. I need to get on top of this. This is what's going on. Like, I know how quickly it can set in, and its little tricks and whatnot can creep in. So, and I'm noticing that this is what, like, I'm telling you, because I don't want it to get louder. So I think it's like, it's coming from it from a different perspective. And I as far as like, the misunderstanding and the judgments, and My dad never understood it. And even now, like if I jump on a phone call with him, the first comment is, you need to gain weight. And it's like, how,
Not helpful.
what? Like, where is that coming from? Like, hi, how are you? What's been happening? How's your life? Kind of thing. And so, and my dad's always been someone like, if people came around, it's, this is my daughter, she's got an eating disorder, like kind of justifying my appearance. Um, you look unwell, you look sick, and I resented my dad a lot for it. And because it's like, it's no matter how many times we tried to tell him, he just didn't get it. He was stuck in his ways, and that's the way that he handled it. And so I think I've become very good that it's like, okay, fine, they're stuck in their ways, that's how they handle it. I'm not gonna try to change that. It's not worth my energy. These people who are showing up for me and defending me and wanting to hear my story and not treating me like an eating disorder, they're the ones that deserve my attention, because they're the ones that are going to help me, the ones that identify me as Darian and see me for my personality, my intelligence, the knowledge that I give others, how I help others. They're the ones that matter. At the end of the day, like when I I don't want to relate this to the eating disorder, but 50 years from now, when I'm lying in my grave, I don't want to pretend that's going to be 2 years or anything like that. Like some of the comments said, she's 1 meal away from death. And I was like, you really have no idea.
Yeah, it's not. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And that, yeah, like eat something. I'm like, I'm currently eating now, reading your comment. Like, um, but they, uh when I eventually get to that point, I I don't want people to look and go, she had an eating disorder. I want people to look and go, man, the impact she had on me was significant. Like she just showed up for me. She made me laugh every time. I remember this memory with her and I remember that memory with her. And when I turned 30, that's when it's like, I don't think I have that many memories with people, because the eating disorder isolated me from everyone for so long. And yeah, so like I think it's a little bit of maturity, it's a little bit of life lessons learned, and it's a little bit of like, I've been going through so much, like with just being unwell and moving houses and that, and it's like I don't give any more fucks to give.
Yeah, for sure. The identity, what you said there is such an important thing. I talk about this a lot, as you can imagine, with bodybuilding. So, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you've got friends or people that you work with that do compete. I know you put some content out about competing, etc. as well. And you do become, and I've spoken about this, it's like, this is Sarah, she's a bodybuilder. I'm like, hello, I am a person as well, because people
Yeah.
associate, this is this person and they do X. And I think that a lot of the time, it's about us trying to find things outside of, which is what you're sort of saying there about, what things are you looking forward to in life? What can you give back to your clients in the community? How can you build your page? How can you educate people? I think there are a lot of bodybuilders listening, that they could sort of think, well, I am just bodybuilding all the time. Now, of course, it's appropriate if you're getting ready for a show, as an example, everything is like prep, it's till you get to that show. And this is where that identity, sometimes the shift, and I'm sure you can relate as well with post show, as you sort of come away from the prep,
Yeah.
it can feel quite a wild place, because no one's asking you, are they, anymore? Like, when's the show? I'm 3 weeks out, all of these things. It's quite exciting. And then it's like, right, okay. So your message there about not being the food disorder is super important when we relate this back to bodybuilding as well. I'm sure you're
And not being the bodybuilder. Yeah. And isn't it so funny that like a lot of these people that were bullying and harass me are in the bodybuilding space? And it's like, you're doing the exact same thing. And the amount of clients that, come to me and they're like, bodybuilding is everything to me. And it's no, it's not. Because who are you when you don't have that stage? Who
sure.
are you when you can't show up to the gym? Who are you when you don't have your nutrition plan? Like, that's what matters. I've learned lately to enjoy the journey regardless of the end result. No matter what the outcome is, no matter if we take it with bodybuilding, no matter what the placing is, no matter whether or not you actually make it to stage, showing up on social media, regardless of whether or not it brings in clients, and that, enjoy the content that you're putting out. enjoy the process of making the content. And I think like that's the same with recovery. Like I know that I'm gonna have setbacks, and I know that some years are gonna be harder than others, some months are gonna be harder than others. Like last year I had bulimia and I was binging and purging each day, and it's like I know that that was probably like the most difficult time for me, but I've enjoyed the journey of coming out of that and learning how to, you know, cope with it and get stronger. And I think I'm going off track here, but anyway.
No, yeah.
Um,
The thing is as
yeah.
well, you know, like you mentioned there with bulimia, and then, you know, some years will be harder than others, or some weeks will be harder than others. Was there something that triggered the bulimia last year that would sort of give a bit of context to that as well?
Um, I think it's I think it's just me being really ignorant to my stress.
Okay.
Which is something again that I've learned this year is stress shows up in the body. It's gonna like you're gonna get tired, you're gonna get sick, you're going to get aches and niggles, you're gonna get weak. And I always thought that it was the mind thing. And I was like, and I think, you know, although these signs were all popping up and I wasn't sleeping well, and, you know, I had aches and pains all over my body, I was like, I'm not stressed, I'm just sore. And I think it was the ignorance to that, that then I wasn't even aware that I needed to manage my stress better.
Sure.
And I think coming out of that, it was a lot about stress management. I did a lot of like creative things. I kind of like explored what I wanted to do. I started writing to myself. So like my past self, my future self, I'll write to myself every day. And then, and now it's like stress mitigation. I'm like, I don't want to spend my life managing stress. I want to learn how to alleviate that stress.
Mhm.
I think it was like last year that I noticed that I wasn't a fit and healthy person. I was a fit and sick person. I was very, and we see it all the time, like, you know, orthorexia, like just tied to this kind of like, I've got to do this amount each day. I've got to do this amount of cardio each day. I've got to eat this certain amount and things like that. And it's like, you're stuck. You're stuck in this body, and it's yes, you're fit and the criteria wise you're a healthy person, but you're toxic.
Yeah, actually, I had Stan Efferding on, and he was saying fitness is sort of saying that you could, when you get on stage, you know, you're not going to be performing in the gym at your best, and all of those things that you would associate with sort of a muscular physique. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense, because you know it's like when you sort of step on stage and it's like, there ain't no way I'm going to be able to perform, as it were, you know, something that would be related to fitness a lot of the time. Now, of course, there is categories that include that, but a lot of the time, you know, essentially what you're doing is you're going deeper and deeper into a deficit. And then by that point, it's like, okay, I'm pretty fucked now. And I think that sometimes as well, you know, the opinions that people form around that can be so mixed with bodybuilding. Now, you've competed before, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah, so of course you can relate to all of this, but when we look at the opinions of people around us, you know, a lot of the time it's from this miseducated point of view that people think actually we're really fit, we're really healthy, and you know, when we're on stage with this like shining physique, but there's so much more that goes into it. So I really like you touched on the stress mitigation and the stress on the body physiologically. I don't know if you found this for yourself and maybe for clients, that sometimes you can say, you know, physiologically you're quite stressed, and the person can go, no, I'm fine. You know, my stress is fine. But the body is like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm really stressed.
Or the gym is the way that I manage my stress.
Yeah.
Dude, you have no concept of allostatic load. Like it is not the way that you manage stress. I can tell you what you need is a therapist.
No,
um,
it's so true.
but and you probably get it too. You probably get people that they're like, oh, I don't want to compete. I just want to see what it's like to get as lean as a bikini competitor or something like that. And I'm like, nope,
Yeah.
nope, it's not worth it. It's really not. And even clients that are like, hey, we'll have a show planned out, we'll get them all ready and stuff like that, and it'll come time to prep, and I'm like, mentally, you're not there. You're still telling me that you're uncomfortable in your body, you're uncomfortable following the protocols and things like that. I'm not throwing you into a prep. And like you can either respect that and I'll give you the reasons why, or you can go find another coach and come back to me afterwards. But
So much respect for that. So much respect. Please, guys, if you're listening and you're a coach, play that bit back. It is, and Darian, honestly, I'm so glad you said that. It's so important that we don't just ignore the red flags, as I call them, or the signs, and put someone into a bodybuilding prep. It's so important.
when I first hired Max, she said to me, a lot of the people when they work with me, they realize that they don't want to compete. And she's like, are you okay with that? She's like, if I feel like the client isn't in a good place to compete, are you okay with me encouraging them not to? And I was like, absolutely, go for it. Like, because I'm not in this to put 100 girls on stage each year. Like, that's not what I want. I generally want clients who have a connection with me and just feel so supported that they can be as vulnerable as they need to be with me, because I know that that's what I need. Not from my clients, obviously, but I need that from other people.
Yeah.
I need a space where I can just feel free to say what I want to say and not be worried about the judgment. Because I think that that's what kept me so long from starting my journey with recovery, was that I was so afraid of the judgment, and that judgment would lead to me going into hospital. Like, and it goes to a crazy extent. Like, I remember going into the outpatient ward with coins strapped to my underwear. I had this pair of underwear that was like hidden in the back of my closet so my mom didn't find it, and it was like full of sticky tape and coins. And then I had those like wrist weights that you can buy.
Mm.
Well, because my forearms were like so skinny, I used to tie them to my forearms because I knew that the cloak would cover it.
Okay,
And
yeah.
it's like the extent that I went to just to avoid people thinking that I wasn't okay. And it's funny because like obviously I wasn't okay, and obviously I was getting worse, so I had to add more weight each week. But it's like, I don't ever want anyone to feel like they're in that position where they have to just lie and justify everything that they do and distance themselves further from getting help because they're afraid of what other people will say. And I think that's what I was going to get to before when I said that I totally blanked. In that comment section, a lot of like I said, a lot of the stuff, it's the same. If you go through the nasty comments, it's like the same thing over and over again. I'm like, okay, guys, like we have no originality here. Like you guys are never gonna write a book.
Yeah.
But this is why you've got no posts, because you don't know how to write a caption. But it's almost like, who is this helping?
Yeah.
And if you genuinely think, or know or whatnot, that I've either suffered from an eating disorder, or you'll think that I'm one meal away from death, and that, who is that comment helping?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah,
It's such a,
that's it.
it's hard to
Yeah, that's what annoys
contemplate.
me. Yeah,
Yeah, because it would
yeah.
be like, you having a client that faces a similar thing. It could be a completely different scenario, but for people like ourselves, you think, where does this come from? And of course there is elements of people being pretty unhinged in life and needing to do this. A lot of these people don't even have profiles, do they? It's like zero followers, and they follow a handful of people, and you think it's just so wild to think that someone sits.
Mm.
And then it's
My
like,
favorite is when, my favorite is when they're a sponsor for a brand. Someone commented yesterday, and he was an affiliate for Raw Nutrition.
oh
So
yeah,
I replied to his comment and I said, top-notch athletes, Raw Nutrition. Comment deleted. And like, I didn't delete the comment. He went back and deleted the comment as soon as I tagged him. I was like, well, this is gonna be easy. I just need to go through and find like who's sponsored by companies and then tag the company.
yeah. Well, also this transfers into, if people are subjected to what you've been through or a lesser degree, it's like, if someone has got an eating disorder, or if someone is bodybuilding, and maybe it's going into those realms, right? Like disordered ways of thinking, etc. A lot of the time, and you've sort of said it a little bit there, where you're feeling the voice getting louder, you're pushing this person into more of what you're accusing them of, and that in itself is very hard. But that's often what bullies do, isn't it? They sort of thrive on, oh, well, that person's going to be worse off, and it's very hard to comprehend what that mind is, you know.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think like if we go back to sort of the start of the conversation, one thing that I learned from Mac is that I don't I'm allowed to justify myself when I want to justify myself. And I can do that on my own free will, which is what I did with Greg, because I felt like that deserved me sticking up for myself.
Mm.
Apart from that, I don't owe my story to anyone. I don't owe my actions to anyone. I don't need to tell people why I did something. And that's why when people were saying, oh, you know, just block him and delete the post and turn off the comments and whatnot. And I was like, no, because what I said in that post was about hack squats, and it's 100%
Pretty good
true. And
post.
I'm sick of seeing people bobbing up and down on the hack squat, particularly when there's a leg press right next to it and I want to use a hack squat. So like I'm not taking it down. I did nothing wrong. I didn't say, this is how you do the hack squat. By the way, I have an eating disorder. If you want to look like me,
Yeah.
join my team, kind of thing. It's like I don't promote it. And there was I did a post about this, but there was a nutritionist that I was listening to, and you've probably found this too. So many people that now work in the health and fitness industry and help other people have gone through so much shit and so much bad eating and so much body dysmorphia and things like that. But it's like they've had that time on the road. Like their tires have hit the road and they've gained that knowledge. So not only do they have the practical knowledge, but like they have the what do you call it? I don't know, like
Personal anecdote.
yeah, you know what I mean. You can just call me. And then they and she was working with like a social media coach, and they said, oh, like you should do more of your ab shots. Because then when people see your abs, they will know that, okay, well, like when I get healthy and I work with this person, I'll get abs like that. And she was like, I have stomach issues. I have real like gut problems. There's a lot of foods that I can't eat without getting bloated or, you know, feeling sick and getting constipated or having diarrhea because of my history with like eating disorders and going through chronic dieting periods, going through fad diets and things like that. And she's like, and I have body dysmorphia. And she's like, me putting that out on the internet is not what I want females to think health is. And health and body weight isn't nutrition isn't the main indicator of health and body weight. Genetics is. Like genetics are the main determinant of your body weight. So it's it's just like it's a misunderstanding from people and it's an ignorance from people. But I don't show up on the internet and I don't, you know, oh my, look how bony my hips are. Oh, look at my thigh gap kind of thing.
Yeah.
Want to join my team? It's like I've never once done, you know, maybe when I was competing because like it was
We all
more
do that.
relevant.
Yeah.
But I've never, well, like I meant like I think when I was competing, I was showing people how much muscle I had gained.
Yeah.
Because like even in that period, I'd gained like 10 kilos or something, and I was like, but I've never showing my body off to promote my business. All the info on my page is education.
Yeah. It's so important because I had a business coach, and he said, you know, sometimes actually it goes the other direction. If I'm working with a lifestyle client, if they see my physique on stage, they're like, I don't want to look like that. Like that's not what I meant. So it like goes the opposite direction. But there's certainly, it's almost like this analogy to prep as well, isn't it? Like you get all the likes and all the traction because people are like, you're getting shredded. Again, it's then quite difficult for a lot of females to accept, me included, that sort of off-season body that can add to that being quite hard to then feel like you may be comfortable to post physique shots. But when you're getting leaner, you know, it feels like, oh, you know, everyone's behind me and they want to see it. And we
isn't it so ironic that it's like when you're your healthiest and you know your sex drive is the best and you're functioning the best in that, you feel so insecure.
For
But when you feel like shit and you know you get shredded and whatnot, it's like, okay, now I'll post because I know no one's gonna make a nasty comment about me, kind of thing. And it's like, this is so fucking backwards.
honestly, sometimes, you know, sort of on the outsider's point of view, it's like bodybuilding can seem pretty fucked up, right? You know, like we go through these multiple stages and we're going down to extremely low body fat as a choice. We then step on stage for 5 or 10 minutes. Then we're like almost, you know, some people push up very high. Then we do it again. And some people think, you lot are like lunatics, you know, why are you doing that as a choice, as it were? But of course, bodybuilding does bring an identity that, again, myself, you know, it's like I love being a bodybuilder, I love competing. But from an outsider's point of view, it's a pretty crazy thing to do, isn't it?
And I think just because like I'm cautious of the time, and one thing that I did want to say, I was like, and I'm like, I've got to remember to say it on the podcast. When I messaged Greg, I just said to him, hey, like I said I've received a lot of backlash. Can you please take the post down? And then when he came back and he said that he was thinking about doing a whole video about me, I said, and he said, do you suffer from body dysmorphia? Have you tried counseling? And he's like, you, he's like, I've got a lot of clients who suffer with body dysmorphia, and it's just really interesting to me, kind of thing. And then I said, you can do what you want, but I'm not giving you permission to do a video on me. You don't know my story and you've got no right to tell it. And then he came back. I went to sleep. I woke up to, I reckon, maybe 15 messages from him, probbing, commenting on some of my posts, replying to some of the things that I had said like previously, trying to get more information. And I just commented back and I said, Greg, if you've got clients that suffer from body dysmorphia, use them as your resources and your references. Don't use me because you don't know me. And then he just liked it. And when I saw that he just liked it, he didn't comment back. I was like, yeah, he's gonna go and do it anyway. But one thing that you also said is, did I seek extra help? And my sister messaged me and she's like, because I showed her the screenshots from Greg, and she was like, I promise I'm not going to make this worse, but I'm going to write a message to him and hopefully it will deter him, but I promise I won't make it worse. I'll just come up at it from an empathetic standpoint. And when she sent me what she was going to send him, yeah, like that would 100% work on someone who has morals. But it's only going to fuel the fire. And I said I would prefer, I think he's going to do a video anyway, but I would prefer to just maybe let it die down and hopefully he forgets about it. Hopefully, I don't know, Chris bumps, not hopefully, this is horrible to say, but hopefully like, you know, I don't know, maybe, what's his name? I don't know, Walker breaks his leg again or something like that. And that's like the breaking news and then everything gets turned off me. Yeah, but then I was like, but I'm afraid that if you send it, it's just going to remind him. And so like it's almost like it's not worth getting help. It's not worth, you know, as much as my mom wanted to step in and message him and comment on that. And I'm like, no, it's not worth it.
That's the hard thing when family get behind you, isn't it? Like my mum's the same. If things have happened at work in the past or whatever, she's like, "Right, I'll go down there." I'm like, "No, calm down."
Yeah.
Because of course people care. I think that also it's trying to remember like how you're feeling, and you know, if that will make you feel like maybe that will add fuel to the fire for him to do this video. I mean, it's hard for you. How do you feel about the thought of him doing a video, because you don't even know if he's going to? Are you okay with it? You sort of think, if it happens, it happens.
I'm not sure if the video was what he did on his stories and he just wanted to react straight away, that he didn't do the whole YouTube thing.
Yeah.
I also don't know if because of like the video that Patty did, and I know that Patty's got more videos coming out with what I sent him. Whether he's just like, okay, I look like an idiot. But then knowing Greg, I think, yeah, maybe there is a YouTube video coming out. And then I guess my responsibility from that is just to reply to every remark that he says with the actual truth.
It's such a, before we jumped on, I said to you, does it feel quite surreal? it's like it's almost so far-fetched that you wouldn't think that someone would be attacked in this way or bullied or however we want to frame it, you know. It just seems
Mm.
it's such a
Especially,
wild
it's
thing.
just like it's out of the blue. Obviously, like my followers have gone up now, but I was at like 5K followers when it happened, and I was like, what do I mean to you? Like, I'm not a big account or anything like that. I'm not a fitness influencer. I'm not sponsored by anyone. I don't, it's why does it matter to you?
Yeah, I wonder if it is back to that sort of, like you said, with him having clients that maybe have body dysmorphia, etc. If he almost saw it as an opportunity or something, I don't know. It's hard to understand how these people work for sure, you know, when it's of this
Yeah.
nature.
But wouldn't it be have more depth and more reliability if he talked about one of the clients that he had worked with, if it really
Or
mattered to him that much?
maybe offer help to you rather than, you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, on the flip side of
But or if he was going to share my video, and instead of captioning it with the wrong exercise, maybe he should have captioned it with everything she's saying here is true. I don't understand why the comments are all about her appearance when she didn't address that at all. And like you never know someone's story in that. That
Mm.
probably would have been a smart thing to do. I probably would have reshared that.
Would have been quite nice. Now, of course,
Yeah.
we sort of touched on some of the things of your story, as it were, and I spoke to you about coming back on and doing an episode on your story. If you're still up for that at some point, that would be, you know, a really nice opportunity. I feel like what we spoke about at the start, a lot of people suffer in silence, and you did for a number of years, and I've always said to Matt, you know, sort of, it's so nice for me to have people on and talk about their journey when they are at a point where it's appropriate, because it's really inspirational for people to hear. And you know, if you wanted to still do that, that would be super cool. But of course, no pressure.
No,
But
no, I'm an open book with it. Like I'm at that point where I can talk about it and I can share my experience. I'm happy to do that. I just before we do it though, I need to map out my timeline. This is something that I learned recently is because every time I try to think back, I get it muddled up and I'm like, oh, did that happen before that? Or did that happen before that? And what I learned is because it's like, because there's so much trauma, I was sexually assaulted, throughout it as well. So like there's a lot of trauma there. And it's like when you're in a car accident and afterwards you're like, I know I was in a car accident, but I don't remember it. Like I don't remember what happened or, I don't know if you've ever broken something of that. It's like I remember the actions that led up to it, but I don't remember actually breaking my arm kind of thing. And it's because your brain protects you from that
for
for
sure.
whatever reason,
Mm.
from that trauma. So once we set a date, I'll put a timeline just so that when I'm telling my story, I'm not like, oh wait, no, that happened that happened before.
What you said there as well before we wrap up, protecting your brain. I actually heard something the other day, ironically, but we all have, you know, everyone can have like be in the same circumstance. There could be five of you and you all experience exactly the same thing, but your brain interprets it as something different. And then I read that sort of memories are almost fictitious a lot of the time because you draw something from that that could be so different from everyone else. I found that so interesting. And like you say, we
Yeah.
protect ourselves, especially when trauma is related, but that would be, you know,
I,
a really nice opportunity.
I've got ADHD too. So like when someone says something, if my brain connects it to something else that I remember, I'll be like, hey, my dog likes bananas as well. What
I love
the
it. And your dog is, although big, very cute.
He's only a year old. And you've probably guessed that he weighs more than me. And
Very big.
you also know that dogs don't mature until they're 2 or 3 years old. So he takes a lot out of me. Like he is just exhausting. And as much as you love them, those times when you just like get out of my fucking feet, like give me space. Today was one of those days. I was like, because I took him to the car wash and then to watch him, and then I tried to wash my own car, and he's like tripping over my feet all the time, and I'm like, I'm on a time limit here because each minute costs me money. But yeah, it's been one of those days with him. And then I got home and he tried to like fight me up the stairs, and it's just like I gave him a look like, give me space.
Stop.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on today. Now, I'll put your handle in the description as well. If anyone wants to share on their stories, because I know you've obviously had a lot of support. So if people listen and they want to tag us or anything like that, then that would be super cool. And then I will look forward to scheduling a full episode to hear about your journey. But thank you so much, Darian.
No, thank you. And again, thank you to Matt, champion.
No, he got very, as you know, quite stressed about the scenario. I'm like, just it's okay. So we're going to help Darian as much as we can. So I will speak to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Bye.